They smiled for the cameras, but behind the scenes they couldn't stand each other. The on-screen chemistry you loved was actually built on years of bitter hatred. In the golden age of television, some of the most beloved shows were battlegrounds where actors fought vicious wars away from the public eye. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the most explosive co-star rivalries that nearly destroyed your favorite classic TV shows. What you're about to learn might forever change how you watch these iconic series. The truth behind these famous feuds is far uglier than most networks ever wanted you to know. Suzanne Somers versus John Ritter. The 1970s brought us some of television's most enduring shows, but it also set the stage for one of the most legendary rivalries in Hollywood history. When Three's Company became a ratings phenomenon, tensions between Suzanne Somers and John Ritter began to simmer beneath their playful on-screen relationship. The breaking point came during season 5 when Somers demanded a massive pay increase, reportedly asking for $150,000 per episode plus 10% of the show's profits, a salary on par with what male TV stars were making at the time. ABC responded by cutting her screen time to just 60 seconds per episode, filming her separate scenes where she would talk on the phone from her character's parents' home. Cast members, including Ritter, sided with the network, creating an unbearable working environment. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife, recalled one crew member who worked on the set. John and Suzanne wouldn't even make eye contact between takes. The network eventually fired Somers, but the damage was done. Years later, Somers revealed, "I was made an example of what happens when you get out of line." The two stars didn't speak for nearly 20 years until shortly before Ritter's unexpected death in 2003, when they finally reconciled over a phone call. Shannon Doherty versus Jenny Garth. Perhaps no TV feud has been more public or poisonous than the one between Beverly Hills 90210 co-stars Shannon Doherty and Jenny Garth. What began as typical young actress competitiveness spiraled into physical altercations by the show's 4th season. According to cast member Tori Spelling, things got so heated that male co-stars had to physically separate the women during one particularly explosive argument. They were grabbing at each other's hair, screaming insults. It was like something out of a bad reality show, except this was 1994, Spelling later wrote in her memoir. The tension ultimately led to Doherty's dismissal from the series that had made her a household name. Producer Aaron Spelling later admitted, "We had no choice. The environment had become too toxic for everyone involved." Years later, Garth reflected on their rivalry. "When you're a young woman in a pressure cooker environment with instant fame, competition is inevitable. We were both strong personalities fighting for position." The two have since developed a respectful relationship, though they make no pretense about being close friends. David Duchovny versus Gillian Anderson. While The X-Files captivated viewers with the chemistry between Fox Mulder and Dana Scully, the reality between actors David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson was considerably colder. Their behind-the-scenes relationship deteriorated as the show's popularity soared, with both stars eventually admitting they went through periods where they couldn't stand being in the same room. The tension stemmed from several factors: grueling 16-hour shooting days in Vancouver, the pressure of carrying a hit series, and eventually disputes over equal pay. Anderson was initially offered half of Duchovny's salary despite equal screen time, leading to years of resentment. "There were definitely periods when we hated each other," Anderson later admitted in an interview. "That's the truth. Hate is too strong a word. We didn't talk for long periods of time on set, but it was never about hating each other." Duchovny added his perspective. "The crucible of doing that show made monsters out of both of us." Despite their difficult relationship, both actors acknowledged that the tension somehow added to the mysterious chemistry that made their characters' relationship so compelling to audiences. Lucille Ball versus Desi Arnaz. Even America's most beloved sitcom wasn't immune to backstage drama. I Love Lucy stars and real-life couple Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz presented the perfect picture of a loving, if comically challenged, marriage. Behind the cameras, however, their relationship was crumbling under the weight of Arnaz's reported infidelity and alcohol abuse. Ball filed for divorce in 1960, the same year their show ended, but remarkably maintained a professional relationship with Arnaz. Their complicated dynamic influenced much of the tension viewers sensed in their performances, with Ball later saying, "We were battling something else on screen. It wasn't just comedy we were creating." B. Arthur versus Betty White. Few feuds have been as surprising as the one between Golden Girls stars B. Arthur and Betty White. Despite playing best friends Dorothy and Rose, Arthur reportedly couldn't tolerate White's perpetually sunny disposition. Rue McClanahan, who played Blanche, revealed in her autobiography that B was annoyed by Betty's positive attitude. White later confirmed the tension, saying, "She was not that fond of me. She found me a pain in the neck sometimes. It was my positive attitude, and that made B mad." The contrast in their personalities created an almost perfect comedic tension on the screen, but made for uncomfortable moments when cameras stopped rolling. Despite their personal differences, both actresses remained consummate professionals, never allowing their friction to affect the quality of the show. Terry Hatcher versus everyone else. The cast of Desperate Housewives became famous for their on-screen drama, but the real conflict happened when the camera stopped rolling. The feud between Terry Hatcher and the rest of the cast, particularly Marcia Cross and Eva Longoria, became legendary in Hollywood circles. The tensions escalated when Hatcher positioned herself front and center for a Vanity Fair magazine cover, reportedly saying, "I won the Golden Globe." The incident created such bad blood that by the series finale in 2012, the other actresses gave the crew farewell gifts with a note that deliberately excluded Hatcher's name. Longoria later confirmed the feud in leaked emails during the Sony hack, writing to series creator Mark Cherry, "We all hate Terry." When asked about the tensions years later, Hatcher simply stated, "I will never disclose the real truth about our relationship." Deborah Messing versus Megan Mullally. Sometimes the most vicious feuds arise between the unlikeliest of pairs. Will and Grace stars Deborah Messing and Megan Mullally portrayed best friends on screen, but by the final season of the show's revival, the actresses weren't on speaking terms. The evidence of their falling out played out publicly when fans noticed they had unfollowed each other on social media. Production schedules were reportedly adjusted to minimize their time on set together, with some scenes rewritten to keep their characters apart. Neither actress has directly addressed the cause of their disagreement, though sources close to production cited personality conflicts that had been building for years. The tension became so unbearable that it reportedly contributed to the decision to end the revival earlier than initially planned. What these famous feuds reveal is something we often forget. Actors are human beings working in high-pressure environments where egos, jealousy, and personality conflicts are magnified by fame and scrutiny. Sometimes the magic we see on screen comes at the cost of real human relationships. The next time you watch a classic television show, look closely at the interactions between the stars. The tension you might detect could be more than just good acting. It might be the visible edge of a real-life battle happening just beyond the frame. Hit subscribe to uncover more Hollywood secrets.